myself a big old stroke, and I have not.
Just give your camera a nice little Dutch angle, okay?
Mm.
It'll makes things much more unsettling. There you
Yeah,
go.
people will love that.
That's art,
Mm-mm.
man. They have to
Yeah,
feel unsettled when they're watching this or listening to it. They can't, I
yeah,
guess
we're
they
not
can't see it.
we're not just scumbag critics. We are also artistes ourselves, auteurs, if you will.
Auteurs, we are. We've come a long way from our roots, which are basically based in no kind of film at all.
I know, yeah.
And
We like film. That qualifies us, doesn't it?
God damn, Clay, how the hell are you?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Not good. Not. I was about to say not Gad, but I'm not Gad either. I'm not
You're
bad.
not good. You're not dead.
I'm not dead. So we decided to watch a couple of movies, and I'm really glad we did because I was very, for one of them, I was really anxious to talk to you about it personally, and
Yeah,
then
definitely.
this other one that you recommended, First Contact. The first one I'm talking about is In a Violent Nature, but the second one was First Contact, which I did watch, and I don't know if you necessarily recommended it to me. You just said, "Hey, I watched this." And I was like,
It's
"Okay."
more of a factual statement than a
Yeah,
recommendation.
it was definitely a factual statement. So I decided to take a look at that, and you decided to catch In a Violent Nature, and here we
Yeah,
are to talk about both of those. What do you want to start
that's
off
right.
first?
Let's start off with First Contact, and then we'll move on to In a Violent Nature. And I've
Okay.
done just to a caveat. I've done zero research on First Contact. So
Okay, well, we're going to do some research on the fly right here, right
that's
now.
right. That's what the Googles is for.
Luckily, the computers are sitting right in front of us, and we can type into the Googles, and it'll give us everything we need.
That's right.
All right,
Let's do
so
it right now.
yeah. So First Contact is a movie that came out 2023, I believe.
Yeah, it's who knows? Sure. It
Yeah.
seems
Okay.
very it seemed very new. It did. First Contact, horror movie, facts. Well, let's do that.
It was directed and written by Bruce Wimple, who has done other smaller budget horror films. Apparently, he kind of sticks to practical effects, which is always cool.
This thing was lousy with CGI, so I don't buy it. Starring Miss Anna Shields, James Liddell, LeJean Woods. Do I have the right movie? Because I don't recognize any of these people.
Chris Simperman, yeah, James Liddell,
Okay.
Anna Shields, Chris Simperman. Yeah, it's the same one.
Okay.
Because
All right.
there are other movies called First Contact out there, but
Yeah, but not this. But that's not the one. It's
that's not the
basically
one.
it's a low budget horror movie.
So yeah,
Uh,
I just wanted to ask you, can you break down what the hell happened?
I'd love to if I could, but the film made no sense at all.
Damn, I was hoping to get some insight from you on this one.
I mean, what I can gather is okay. The basic setup is this: it's siblings. Dad vanishes. I don't want to say dead because he's just no one's found him. So eccentric dad got a house in the woods or out in the rural area, vanishes, and he's making some kind of weird. I don't know. It looks basically the guy must be 7 degrees of genius because he's basically building CERN in his barn.
Yeah.
It's just this multi-dimensional machine. He vanishes off the face of the earth, and then his kids go in and inherit the house and then start jerking around with the same machine that made him poof off into La La Land. And what we get from there is very confounding.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna first off. Let's start this off that there may be potential spoilers for all these movies. These aren't just a contemporary general review. We may go in depth on certain things. So if you haven't seen these movies, go out and watch them. Come back, listen to us critique what we did and what we didn't like about these movies. But God, I was taking notes actually during this film because I figured after the first fade out, I was like, okay, I've gotta take notes on how many fade outs we're seeing here because it took me back to Veronica a lot.
Oh, it made me it made me want to hurl my glass at the screen after about the third one. And if you watch the movie, I don't know why you would. I actually liked it. Just in certain ways, I did like it.
I'll go to that later, but yeah,
yeah, but Oh my God. I know that's what we're doing. I know we're criticizing a movie. I hate crapping all over people's art because I know that making a movie, even a bad one, is an incredibly difficult endeavor. But geez, like the editing in certain spots of this
Yeah.
is unfathomable. Like it's just so distracting. If you're aware of the editing, it's something's not right. And they just do
Yeah.
these fade to black that would you would just looking at it objectively, you'd be like, this is terrible. I need to find a different transition at the
What
end of
it
this
felt
clip.
those fade to blacks felt like soap opera transitions on television. There's the big face, the big reveal, it fade to black, comes back up. You're in the same place, same people are there, and I'm like, why did we just fade to black? It doesn't make any sense. Why not just a cut or an exterior edit? You know, I know small budget filmmakers love to do their exterior shots, so why not just throw it in there? This
take a page from our friend Mike Kuchik, who just loves to show the same outside shot of that same house 100 times. Yeah.
But this is the filmmaking was weird, and you're right. There's something that felt off about it. It's kind of like watching a U-Bowl film, or that that you're sitting there going, like when they're doing the two head shots or the two shots of people talking. It just seemed like the cuts were cutting off before people were talking or after the. I know they're trying to make it a seamless cut between two people having a conversation, but the cuts back and forth to the face was totally distracting, and I was like, who's talking right now? What's going on?"
Why a cynical person might say that those were filmed not in the same day, week, or continent.
You're right. Yeah, no, yeah, there probably was limited. I couldn't find any information on this, by the way. I did find a couple of reviews of the film. I was trying to look for, because sometimes the directors or whatever do interviews, and maybe I just didn't do a deep dive enough on it, which is probably true.
Uh,
I didn't dive too deep, so there probably is a review or an interview out there with the director, but I didn't put in the
maybe. You didn't do your due diligence. Well, I didn't
I should
either.
have.
Like I like my lazy ass was just like, well, I watched it. That's not enough. I watched the film. I did my job. I watched it.
Now tell me, were you thinking this is a film that we probably should have watched as a watch through for our other series on the channel?
That's a good question. Not really. Not
No?
like, and that thought comes into play a lot. And and I don't know that the film really gave us enough. It might have. You never know.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't making a lot of cracks in my head, and if I'm making a whole bunch of jokes, like I sat there and watched it with my partner, and if I'm sitting there, my basis for that is when my brain is just screaming out
Yeah.
all these riffs that I will piss her off with if I go into two. She likes it when I riff movies to a certain degree, but
Right.
then it gets annoying. That wasn't happening with this one. I was just sitting there watching, like shaking my head, going like, "What are we doing?" And then just throwing my hands up every time that there was a scene, an inconsequential scene, by the way, ended, fades to black, and then goes on to something else. Yeah, and the acting.
Oh God, yeah. The acting was subpar. I've seen that James Liddell. Now I recognize him because I've seen him in another movie, so I did look up his credits, and he was in the Hell House Origins, the Carmichael
Okay.
House. Now I really
Okay.
enjoy the Hell House series. I enjoy the hell out of them. So, but I'll be honest with you, I can't remember him that well in Carmichael House. I know he played like a pivotal role in it, but I can't really remember too much of what he did. So I'm not sure if that's on me or if that's on what he did. But
or if he just blends into the tapestry of mediocre horror movies that we've watched. It was I'm struggling to even remember. Like it was wild because I feel like it was not a very deep or complicated plot, but it was made complicated by just the baffling creative choices.
Yeah, to me, it got really complicated. It really got not complicated, but confusing. It reminded me of the Three Body Problem. I don't know if you've ever seen that Netflix series or read the book. It's just about
I watched a Netflix series.
Yeah, so it had that kind of vibe about it. Not in such a physics oriented and scientific way that Three Body, but it also gave me laser blast vibes too.
It
The
did.
MST 3000, where the guy gets infected by the alien and he starts changing and he's going around killing everybody, and it just like, oh, this is kind of like laser blast in a way.
It kind of was. It's funny that you say that. And the guy that the actor, was that Liddell that played the dude that got infested with whatever the bad
No, he's the
mojo
brother.
was?
He was the brother.
Okay. The acting in that, my one crack that I thought was pretty funny is that I said he's Jim carrying on was my one zinger through that. This dude's acting was just over the top.
Oh yeah.
And then the counterpoint was everybody else, the people that they chose for the leads in the show, took their Xanny bars before starting their workday. They were just so goddamn bland.
There's a specific incident in the movie where they're actually getting attacked by this alien extra dimensional creature. She somehow scares it off with a blowtorch can, and they look around and like, where'd it go? I don't know. All right, well, back to work. They've just been stalked, and it's like, no, there's still an alien monster around here. You're not getting concerned about that? It's the Xanax level of concern was getting to me too.
Like, before you start your acting day, I need you to take enough Xanax to where if you were on a plane and the engines failed, you would be totally fine with what transpires next. I will say though that for such a low budget movie, the creature effects weren't bad. I kind of liked the creature effect. It kind of reminded me of if anybody's ever played the Resistance games on the PlayStation, there's this creature with multiple eyes. I was like, okay, I kind of like the creature in this. It's a pretty good monster.
100%. I love the creature effects. That's all his practical stuff that they're talking. There was CGI in here that was goofy, but the practical monster effects were amazing and outstanding. So I have to give him a lot of props. I think overall, I think there's some great and interesting theory and thoughts about this movie. I think he was just really limited by the scope and the resources that Bruce Wimple had around that. He had these really, I didn't understand a lot of it. I knew there was an alien force coming towards Earth, right? And everyone knew there's some kind of alien force, but that's what I thought they were talking about. But it turns out the dad had pulled in some extra dimensional creature. One's good and one's supposedly bad. One is bad. And they were trying to stop a war from potentially breaking out between the aliens or get one started. It was really convoluted, and I was trying to wrap my head around it. I could appreciate the effort it took. I'd rather read a book about it, though. Maybe if he could go in some more in depth about everything, I would like, okay, I can get it. But in the movie, it just did not come across the screen too well.
I tend to go to for some reason I always tend to make musical metaphors and comparisons when I'm watching a movie like this, and I'm sure you can relate to this. If you ever listen to, and I'm sure you listen to a band that you're like, okay, this is murdering my eardrums, but there's something here. There's an energy, there's a heart, there's a creative energy to this that someday is going to be big. Like I remember, hell, it was High on Fire's first album. I was listening to that, and this friend of mine was like, "You like this?" And I said, "I don't know, man. There's something here. There's something here. It's raw. It's rough to get through, but there's something here." And that's and they're like, considered one of the best heavy metal bands ever now. And, a lot of fans probably like that first one, but that's kind of the metaphor that I went to. There is something here. There was something about the way it was shot. There's something about what was intended. It fell far short of whatever it was intended, but it was still like, I still enjoyed watching it, and I still enjoyed having watched it, even though if you recommend it to anybody, they'll be like, why did you recommend I watch this movie? This failure of cinema.
I know we trash on it here a little bit, and it's, I didn't have a problem with it either. I gave it a like. I gave it a thumbs up on Prime or whatever, because
oh, absolutely, I did too.
Even if it failed,
for help, Go to its companion.
Technology, folks. My apologies.
Well, hello, Siri. Thanks for coming in. We wanted to talk to you.
Know. Give me just a second, and I'll fix that.
I'll just do the humming music.
I unplugged it.
Okay. Yep. I would definitely give this I would recommend check it out. It's got some interesting thoughts and ideas there. I think it was poorly executed. I do want to point out some things that I did see in the film.
Okay.
Let's go to, other than the Fade of the Blacks, which I definitely marked down here in my notes.
I'm glad you mentioned those because they made me quite angry.
There's one odd thing where they mentioned Debbie, and Debbie's the name of a dog. I'm not sure why the father decided to call his dog Debbie. It was alluded to that maybe it might have been a girlfriend of his, but everyone said it was a dog. So just in case anyone was going to, oh shit. Clay's dropped and I'm here by myself. What am I going to do, guys? I'm going to have to edit. That's what I'm going to have to do. What's going on? Let me send him another invite. He's back,
folks.
Did you accidentally leave the studio?
No, it just
really?
You're done, my friend.
Oh, okay.
But sorry about that. You were saying Debbie the dog, and as I recall, we never get back to Debbie. Who is she, or why was she mentioned?
Well, yeah, I don't know why she was. The dog was mentioned. It doesn't make any sense. I didn't get that part. I don't know why they called it Debbie. I don't know why they're talking about a dog.
We named the dog Indiana.
There's a fade out. So the brother and the sister go out and they see this light in the middle of the field, right? And they both get out of the car and they're looking at this light, and suddenly the light comes towards a girl, but the brother blocks the light and the light hits him and he gets possessed and he goes unconscious right there in the middle of this field. You know, they've driven out here to see this thing that was miles away, and they go a fade to black yet again, and when they fade in again, he's on the couch in their house perfectly fine. Now, she's not a very big woman. She seems very petite. And
maybe 5'1".
Yeah, and he seems a little tall and probably has some weight on him, and dead weight at that. So I'm trying to think, how did she get him not only into the car to drive him all the way back home, but get him out of the car, up the stairs, onto the couch, and then he doesn't have like multiple contusions or abrasions, being scraped on the back.
Yeah, like
have you ever been drug around?
Yeah.
Have you ever been drug around while you're unconscious, Clay?
Not yet, but I'm sure it'll happen at some point.
Well, I have, and it sucks.
I got road burn on my buttocks.
No, I haven't. I haven't actually. But that was.
It's kind of an inexcrutable film. Is a very odd movie that these kind of movies, you can't judge them against good movies. You have to judge them against other bad movies, and judged against other bad movies, it was pretty fun. I mean, I think that if you're a horror fan, you're just different. You're you're going on to and God, how lucky are we to have something like Shudder where you can just watch just bananas, crazy stuff like this without. In my day, we had to go to the video store and rent a piece of shit and come back with it.
We're not sponsored, by the way, but we would love a sponsor from Shudder.
Oh God, yeah, that would great. I'm sure they'd be like, "Oh, let me take a look at your viewership." Yeah, come back to us when
come back to us in years from now.
But if you like baffling entertainment, check it out. If you want an actual good movie, you might. I don't know. Maybe you're a snob. Maybe you're pretentious. Maybe you're not a good person. I don't know.
And now we can judge this movie on our superficial scientific rating system.
That's right.
I would have to give it, let's see, an avocado pit as well as a side of guacamole. That's what I give it. I'm standing by that.
I'm going to give it 2 out of 5 outlets on the power strip that's needed to generate the energy needed for this CERN device that Dad built
Yeah.
with duct tape and tinfoil in the shed.
Oh, that's good. I
The
like that.
big
Yeah.
MacGuffin. Yes.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
remember
great.
when you were running those numbers by me about how you came up with that system, and I was just very amazed that you had this knowledge of physics.
I
So
know. I remember you telling me that I probably should seek help and for my issues.
I'm
But
glad you didn't.
that was First Contact on Shutter. Check it out if you wish. But the reason that anybody is probably watching this is to get our take on the very popular In a Violent Nature, which is the Canadian horror film that's kind of out there in the ether now that people are talking about. And we both saw it recently, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you thought about it.
Yeah, so this movie is by Chris Nash. It says it's not rated, but it certainly should probably be rated R.
Hard R.
Hard R. This is one of those films that I had heard about. I not really heard about. I'd seen trailers of it, and to me, it looked like an A24. If A24 did a slasher film, just from the
Yeah.
theatrical trailer, there's this moodiness. You see the this monster, the slasher walking through the forest. It's shot really well, and it has these these cool lingering shots. So I was going into it in a certain mindset, and I had no idea what the movie is going to entail, where we're going to see this movie, whose point of view we're going to see the movie from. But when I was in the theater, we sat down, and I realized what was happening, which is basically the story is being told from the eyes of the killer. That if Jason was just risen from the grave in part 6, and we followed Jason throughout, instead of the main characters, the final girls, and everybody, instead of the main cast, we follow Jason. This is probably what he'd be doing if he was kind of like a mindless zombie who just returned from the grave.
It was a very interesting take on the genre. Now, it's one of the, and you see this so much in horror movies, is that the marketing behind them is just over the top hyperbolic, like a new voice in horror. You're gonna poop your pants. This is just bananas. It's crazy. And the more hyperbolic the language, the more jaded, cynical horror fans like us are going to be like, all right, come on, let me see what you got.
Yeah.
And they do everything intentionally. It's a very interesting premise. It's basically the ASMR of horror movies, and I mean that literally. Like, if you enjoy ASMR, especially like nature sounds, it's that through the entire runtime. And it's weird because it actually contradicts the horror. You're seeing just horrific things happen on screen, but there's literally no soundtrack. It's all just the chirpy, crunchy, like birds tweeting sounds of the forest. And the only thing that's a menacing energy in this whole forest is that guy. This is the Jason Voorhees looking dude.
Yeah, and his character name is Johnny in the film, and
close.
Yeah, I know it's obviously an homage to Friday the 13th, and I mean there's nothing that they're doing that Nash is doing in this film that if you saw this as a regular slasher film, you wouldn't be surprised on. You've got the kids out in the kids that are out in the woods. They do something to make Johnny rise from the grave, and then Johnny just starts going on a killing spree. Except we're just seeing it from Johnny's perspective, and the only story or even music that we do hear in the movie is coming from the characters as he's approaching like the campsite, or he's approaching somewhere else where people are. You'll start hearing the music from that they're playing on their own radios or whatever. So I thought that was a really clever and great way to portray this killer stalking through the woods, because he's not listening to music. He doesn't have a soundtrack in his head. And
he doesn't like to bump some crunchy riffs. That's not his thing. And I found out a little bit about this movie. They had to reshoot about 70% of it because the lead, the star of the movie, which is basically the serial killer, this unkillable, supernatural rotting serial killer, is the actor fell sick, and they were like, okay, well, we'll just find somebody else, somebody roughly the same size. But as soon as they started to reshoot it, they realized that everything about him, is nothing like the other guy. The way he
Right.
steps, all of the nuances of acting are totally different. So they had to completely reshoot it. Like a good 75 to 80% of the movie was
Yeah.
redone.
No, it's interesting that they had the production issues that they did. They also had writing issues where Nash, and we'll get to this later, where Nash had several ideas for what he wanted to do for an ending. And he said, like, by the fourth or fifth draft, I think what we're seeing on the screen is like the fourth or fifth draft, because he wasn't happy
Yeah.
with what's before. But back to like the story itself, and what story there is. There's not really a story per se. You all the story you pick up is from the kids talking. That's only because Johnny's in the vicinity. He's watching them, stalking them, and they're explaining who Johnny is and the legend of him. And you get this back history and story, which is cool. I like it. I can compare it to something else that's out there that's popular that doesn't have any sort of kind of backstory like that.
Does it rhyme with Rara River?
It's similar to that. Yeah.
Okay.
So that so In a Violent Nature does have that going for it too. I think seeing it in the movie theater too, and I'm seeing it with there's several people. There's a lot of people in the theater actually. I'm not
Oh,
gonna
that's
say
good.
yeah, it wasn't packed, but there's enough there that we all could comment and not be pissed off that someone's talking. It's one of those things where there's so much silence and no talking and long shots of walking that it's hard not to say something. And
It's hard to not comment on
yeah,
that. I mean, and okay, the big, I don't want to be mean, but okay, the cop out is that it's like, well, that's stylistically, that's what we were going for. You get to literally the 30-minute mark before anything significant happens in this. There's one kill in the beginning that's
it's off
kind of,
screen.
yeah, that's kind of meh. It's okay, but it really doesn't give you a great sense for where the film's
Yeah,
going aside from the pacing of it. But if you watch the trailer for this film, you see this montage of this dude doing his best Jason Voorhees, like Kane Hodder Jason impression
yeah,
of kind of lumbering through the forest, and then it cuts and he's still lumbering, and then it cuts and he's still lumbering, and
yeah,
you're like, okay, that's a pretty cool shot. You see that a thousand more times during this
yeah,
film. They milk that goat until the goat is dehydrated. It's just they do it to just a ridiculous amount. In fact, I wrote a haiku about this film. If you'd like for me to read
yeah.
it
Let's
real
hear
quick.
it. Let's hear it.
So Jason Voorhees flick, no Canadian homage, filler but good kills. Thank you.
Snap.
Yes,
Love it.
yes.
Yeah, so you bring up a great point that and I don't know. See, I'm torn between that because there's moments when we're watching Johnny literally walk for maybe 3 minutes screen time, and
Yeah.
you're just like, okay, I'm into slow burns, I get, and then it'll cut, and then he's in another location. That's great, but then it cuts immediately from that, and he's in another location. I would say, well, why can't you just cut similarly? Why you have to do 3 minute walking? A
Yeah.
walk, it was odd in its editing when it came to choosing whether we're going to see Johnny in another place or if we're just going to see him walk. I don't know if it was exactly successful in what it wanted to do in that area. I think the lack of the music and the sounds of nature really made it a better experience.
Watch it with
Enjoy.
headphones if you're going to watch it. Like
Okay.
I watched it on my computer and I had these exact headphones on, and these are meant for bass guitar, and
Yeah.
it's nice. It was nice listening, but it's nice to the point to where you're like, oh, okay, oh, look at that guy, totally dismantling this person and turning them into human cutlets. I could really go for a nice nature vacation right now. It's so contradictory to the what's going on screen.
Yeah, and I mean, barring that, I wasn't looking for any kind of complicated plot. I wasn't looking for any kind of discernible look into human nature and because to me, what was going on in the background when we were hearing the plot of what the kids were going through, it was your basic slasher plot. There was nothing about it that was artsy. It was kids wanting to have sex. It was kids wanting to get do the cocaine or the marijuana, whatever the kids do these days.
They were
It's just
contemptible as characters. You just
right.
wanted them to get picked off. I remember texting you as I was watching it saying, kill these Canadians faster. And it's nothing against Canadians. They just happen to all be Canadians, but it's like, murder them faster. It's such a slow burn, but you're getting to the same end result. And it's literally, it's just the exact same template as any other slasher film. If you like slasher films, it's a kind of a must watch, but there's not really anything that groundbreaking here.
So you're exactly right. There's nothing groundbreaking. There's nothing in looking into the human condition, and we just want to see those kills from the killer's point of view. And we got to mention that he rose from his grave because someone took an amulet, I guess a personal amulet of his from the grave marker, and then that stirred him up and he picked him up. I mean, that's his goal, is to get this amulet back, and he's killing everybody in his path to get this little amulet. That's going to come into play maybe soon when I talk about other things, but let's talk about the kills in the movie.
Oh God, they go from good to good. As soon as I was starting to get really kind of annoyed with just the lack of action, they give you the first kill and you're like, oh, okay, word. That was good. I mean, the kills in this are not just good, they're friggin' amazing.
There was I would say I was disappointed in that first kill because we don't really see it on screen. You kind of see him reaching for the guy, and then the camera backs off. You just hear maybe some crunching or whatever, and then you see Johnny walk by the corpse, but it doesn't really show it except like in a blur, which is an odd choice. But that said, the rest of the kills, other than the drowning one, there's a drowning one that wasn't too impressive just because it was a drowning. No one's impressed by water going in your lungs. Jesus. People.
No, God. I mean, you have to actually be experiencing it before it's exciting.
And I have my favorite kill. Now, there is a notorious kill in this movie that people do talk about a lot. And shit, I told you there's going to be spoilers, so we're about to spoil this right now.
Yeah, so you've been warned, so don't cry like a little skin girl.
I will say it's not my favorite kill, but what say you regarding it?
Oh, it's kind of an obvious one for me. It's the lookout one where it's the lookout kill where she's out on the cliff. The one it's weird. I have a slight problem with it because there's a continuity problem when it's one of these instances where she's bleeding out of her mouth before she actually gets stuck. And I can't believe that they didn't spot that. Maybe it was one of those things to where it's like, it's too late. We've already got all the footage. So
you just didn't notice it or something. It's like,
but they redeem themselves immediately and do something so outlandishly ghoulish that I was like, okay, that was friggin' bananas. You've won me over.
Now, we don't have to describe it, but there was you could see it on YouTube all over the place, but it's notorious. And I remember being in the theater and everyone in the theater is like, whoa, shit. And we were like, oh man, that fucking is badass.
I bet that was fun to be in a live, like with people.
It was, and that's what I really enjoyed about it was that we're around, not like I said, maybe like 20, 25 people in the theater. It wasn't packed, but enough there that we're all like looking at each other. You see that shit? Oh yeah, we saw that. We were just commenting, and then my favorite kill is probably the last one. Not the last one. It's the log splitter kill.
Oh, that was awesome.
I thought it was pretty brutal. It probably could have been a little bit more brutal. In fact, I thought it was going to go to like a Terrifier kind of kill.
Yeah. I thought so too, because I was sitting there saying, is the guy going in the wood chopper head first or crotch first? Was my comment.
That was what I was thinking.
Yeah, they kind of subverted expectation on that. The director wanted that to go on longer and have more limbs affected, but it was the last thing that they filmed.
Yeah.
And just logistically, they had to wrap it up quicker. And he said also, I was kind of concerned that the audience would only stick it out for so many limbs getting cut up, but it was it was expertly done. It was something that you could only kind of pull off with contemporary technology to
Yeah.
make it look that seamless. Like the camera doesn't cut away once. There's
Yeah.
no cuts to hide the fact that it was obviously it had to be a prosthetic unless this guy is a actual murderer, but it
Right,
was
yeah, unless
so
we
well
just
done.
saw a snuff film or something. But yeah, it was slow and a brutal kill, and I remember being uncomfortable watching it. Just in fact, I was like, Jesus Christ, and all I could think of was like, I sometimes put I put myself in the place of the victim
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah,
Like, what would
definitely.
I be experiencing in this moment? And it would just be utter terror.
Be
And
other just crushing, just bone crunching
yeah,
pain, horror. It was wild. I also like the over, what would you call that, like a dolly shot. That was like, it was a drone shot overhead, where I had to rewind it, like, how'd this other guy die? It was so seamless, where he just throws the axe and then
oh,
saunters forward and he got the guy right in the back of the head. And then
oh yeah,
that was that. There were, I mean, like,
there are a
there's a lot
lot
of
of
filler, but it
there's
was with the kills.
a lot of head specific kills. I mean,
Yeah.
everything's going for the head. I mean, there's a that one, the cliff, whatever, the infamous one was definitely a head thing, but it
Yeah.
had a slight little twist about it. The very last kill where he's just, I mean, just hammering home
Oh yeah.
on this fucking head, and you can see it's getting pounded into mush, and it was. I remember sitting there going, "Okay, this is cool," and it just became, "Why isn't he stopping?" It keeps going, and this is where we start seeing the final girl, who we've seen sporadically throughout the film. We haven't been following her at all, except through bits and pieces of dialogue, and I think she realizes that the amulet that she has been causing all this, and so she puts it down on a little gas canister, because they had this whole plan to kill Johnny, and it
Yeah.
just totally backfires on him. So she places the amulet down and takes off into the woods. There's scenes of her running through the woods. I thought those scenes were really well done.
Yeah.
She's screaming. The wildlife is all around her, and she goes in a circle, I guess, and comes right back, and Johnny's still whacking on this guy, and it was brutally funny in a weird way. And I think, to me, her leaving should have been the end of the movie right there.
Yeah, that was and I've heard other people say that the ending is going to be kind of divisive. And I remember texting you, and you were like, they had me right up until the end, and then the ending just totally blew it. So I was really interested to see how it ends.
Yeah.
And it's basically, what it reminded me of? It felt like somebody trying to be the Cohen brothers and do No Country for Old Men, but it's
Yeah.
like, you are reaching, you're flying too close to the sun here, buddy.
Yeah.
You're not. It just, it didn't bug me probably as much as it did you, because I felt like it was just kind of encapsulated everything that frustrated me about the entire runtime of the film. I loved it as much as it frustrated me.
Yeah.
And the ending kind of encapsulated all the frustrations. It was, it didn't seem to be relevant to anything, even kind of tangentially. I didn't understand, like, what the film was trying to say. And I guess the filmmaker, well, you just didn't get it. It's like, well, no, I mean, I was watching. I should get it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that it has to explode, or that there's got to be a very kind of boilerplate gotcha moment at the end. But it was this quiet kind of inconsequential ending that didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if this ending had been tacked onto another movie that was similar, but we were looking at it from the kid, from a basic slasher point of view, not from a basic slasher flick point of view, and this was the ending that we got, I would understand that ending, and I would appreciate it. They're trying to do something substantial with, what basically happens. And again, if you've made it this far, you're going to get spoilers. We've been following Johnny, this killer, the entire time. We've been watching him walk through these forests for a fucking hour. We've been watching these kills, and we are invested in watching Johnny. I don't give a shit about any of these kids. I don't give a shit about any of these characters that are
No.
dying, because we just want to see Johnny either get his amulet back or just keep killing. And suddenly, when he she puts the amulet down, she runs off, and there's this sequence. It switches over to her perspective, and we no longer see Johnny for the last 15 minutes of the film.
It's about a 15-minute stretch where she's just in a car with the lady rescuing her, and the woman's telling a bear story. And yeah, I gotta say, Hobo with a Shotgun did a bear stories a lot better than this film.
Yeah, and I don't, to me, I didn't care about this bear story. I knew it was they're trying to do a reflection on the violence of human nature, but really, when we think about it, Johnny's not human. He's a monster. He's basically an undead monster. So all that just kind of flew out the window. It didn't matter to me. I didn't care that this final girl made it. I didn't care that she's sitting there waiting for him to come out of the woods, because I hadn't been even watching her this entire time. So I
didn't care about her one lick.
Yeah, I was infuriated that we were suddenly thrown into her story when it wasn't her story to begin with. And it's what was it?
No, go ahead. I was agreeing with you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I read Nash, the director, talking about how he came. I want to know what other endings he had for this movie.
He said that he wanted the original ending, that there was going to be fire and explosion, and that they actually like carry through on their Wile E. Coyote plan to undo him. And you actually see cars exploding in buildings and stuff. And I guess logistically it just wouldn't work, which kind of means, like, you know how much this is going to cost?
Yeah.
And we've already reshot half this goddamn movie. Yeah. No, you're not doing that. That's kind of the way I took it.
Oh, that's disappointing, because I imagine even if we saw Johnny get killed from his point of view, killed or put back into the ground, that would have been a satisfying ending. Imagine if they ended how they began it. They got the amulet up, they kill him, they go through all this, they stab his thing into the ground, and he's buried, and then they put the amulet back on, and then they walk away, and we're left with that shot of that amulet on that pole, just like it opened up, and that's how it ends.
Yeah, or just something ridiculous like just the head of the last victim, and we're just sitting there looking at this gory head that's dripping blood, and then Johnny walks off into the background to where he's actually blurry, and then the credits roll over this gory, bloody head.
Yeah, no, that would be perfect too. I think there's so many good, more lower budget kind of things that could have been done instead of this weird existential write-up at the very end that feels, it just really feels like it is like a fifth draft of an ending that they just couldn't get right, and it really ruined the experience for me, and I was very disappointed. I think to me, her jumping into the truck and escaping, that would have been a great ending. Okay, that's it, we don't have to see anything else. But I don't know if they had to pad the runtime a little bit. It's an hour and 34 minutes. Maybe he just needed to expand it just a little bit more to have more substance there, so they can call it a movie. I don't know.
I guess he wanted some kind of artful ending, but its reach exceeded its grasp. It like bowed under the weight of its own presentation a little bit more. Yeah. But I will say the one scene that probably my favorite scene in the whole movie, and there were some really good ones, but one of my favorites was when Johnny is just sitting there, and it's the only time you get a real good look at his face, and he finds some keys with a little toy car on the keys, and he's just playing with this car, and you just get it's this beautiful moment of him just kind of being this neurodivergent child playing with a toy and looking at it. And then he realizes, oh yeah, I got to kill these kids. And he gets up and does just that. I love that moment. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah. I love that moment. There's a lot of stuff to really like about this film. I'm telling you right now that I hated the fucking ending, but everything before that was really cool. I liked what they were doing. I liked the concept. I thought it was very innovative. And I think if they could have just nailed it at the very end, I probably would have actually bought this and had it in my collection. But unless there's like some kind of real director's cut or something else happens where they just change the ending completely, it'll stay at a completely, what should I give this? I'll give it a single axe head.
Okay, I will give it 2 dunce caps in the corner.
But yeah, I mean, In Violent Nature, I would say definitely check it out. Watch it. The ending's divisive, it seems, for everyone. Some people say I wouldn't just like I wouldn't have got it. Maybe I just wasn't in the headset to really get that after going through all that, what we see. I personally don't think so. I think I totally got the ending. I understood what they wanted to do with the ending. I just didn't think it fit.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it's a hell of a lot cheaper to have two people gun bumping at one another and driving down the road in a truck than it is to have a conclusive ending to your film. But like if you like slasher films, then you can't not like this one
Right.
on some level. It was, I mean, even if you're just got ADHD to the point to where you can't stand the ASMR segments of him trudging through the woods and you just want to go to the kills, I wouldn't suggest doing that. That's not the way you watch movies, but it was definitely had some payoffs that were worth it.
Yeah, and I think the rating it actually has on IMDb is a fair rating. It's pretty much a 5 out of 10, and
Okay.
I would say that's
Yeah.
that's about what I would give it to.
No, that sounds fair.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was In a Violent Nature and the lovely First Contact.
That's right.
And I guess that's about it. I don't think I have anything else.
No, though we've been watching I've watched plenty of other movies lately, but we can discuss those some other time.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you haven't yet, go ahead and like this video, subscribe if you've made it this far. Geez, I should have said this right up front, but those are things I always forget about. But yeah, if you liked it, hit that thumbs up, subscribe. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, hit that follow button, maybe leave a 5-star review or just 5 stars. You don't even have to review it. But I think that's about it.
Love. Yeah, that's it, y'all. Thanks for sticking with us.
All right. Oh, did we even introduce ourselves? I'm Jason.
I'm Clay.
And welcome to Cinematic Suffering. Goodbye.
That's it. Goodbye. Good peace. Out later.